Hello everyone, and welcome to a brief video outlining what it is like to volunteer with ArtStream and some information to review before your first day. ArtStream's classes are open to people 18 and up with intellectual and developmental disabilities, including autism. Through our classes, students improve their communication and social skills while developing friendships. Our goal is that through newly discovered talents and capabilities, students will be able to improve their self-esteem and confidence, and that will ultimately extend into their daily lives. Our volunteers can assist with this by providing support and encouragement to students in our classes and performances, or by assisting with backstage production. To start, let's review what happens in our classes, theater companies, and cabarets. During our classes, students are introduced to music, dance, acting, and improv games that teach communication and social skills. Classes can be anywhere from 1 to 5 days or 4 to 8 weeks. For our theater companies and cabarets, students develop and perform original musicals and plays with unique characters. Our companies rehearse for roughly 6 to 7 months before performing for the public, with a final production designed to showcase each actor's unique talents and skills. Now, let's review the roles and expectations of our volunteers. We ask that volunteers arrive 15 minutes before each class to check in with the teaching artist and set up any necessary materials. ArtStream students look to our teaching artists and volunteers to help them feel engaged and supported. Thus, we ask that all our volunteers behave in a positive, professional manner. Additionally, we ask that volunteers participate fully in all activities and model appropriate behavior. Remember that there is not a one-size-fits-all for all of our students or for a particular disability. Each student should be treated as a unique individual and should be listened to. Listening to each student's needs and responding accordingly is the best way to ensure that our ArtStream students receive the additional support that you will be providing. Additionally, we ask that volunteers engage in conversation with the students, especially during transition times. Volunteers should always use appropriate and positive language. For example, if a student is talking while a teaching artist is giving instructions, instead of saying, "Be quiet," say, "We're listening right now." Additionally, when referring to a person's disability, use people-first language. People-first language focuses on what people can do, not what they can't do. This language uses words and phrases such as disability, people with disabilities, people without disabilities, they use a wheelchair, they have an intellectual or developmental disability. It is important to remember that our words are powerful and have the power to inspire, motivate, and uplift people. Now, on your worksheet, you will see a question asking about a phrase. The phrase is ArtStream, where everyone has a role to play. Finally, let's hear from a few of our past volunteers.
Sometimes the actors may feel stress coming into a new environment, and they're not sure what's going to be happening and what's expected of them. And the best thing to help them out is to let them know what's going to happen ahead of time. That way they know what to expect and they have an idea of how things work. For example, when we have our rehearsals, we greet everyone as they come in, have everyone sit down, and then we do a check-in to see how everyone's doing, and just to kind of get a gauge for how they're feeling for that evening. And then we tell them what's going to happen in rehearsal. We do a group warm-up together. We go through scenes, we take a break, and then we go back and do some more scenes, and then we wrap up the evening of what took place and what we're going to do for the following week. So when they know ahead of time what to expect and how things work, that helps to ease some of the anxiety.
Is putting on a show. I am as nervous as the actors are, and when it all comes together, when the songs work, when the choreography works, when everybody knows their lines, and we run through the show, and it's a success, I walk out of that theater walking on clouds.
She was the first art streamer that made me feel like I was really needed and making a difference by being in the theater company. Sarah taught me so much about being a mentor. She made me slow down and reminded me to be present for her. That in turn reminded me to be present for all the actors. Sarah taught me that an ArtStream production, even though we want it to be, isn't run like an equity theater. She and another student showed me that for an ArtStream show to be a success, it doesn't need to be flawless. Rather, it needs to be a positive experience for the actors. In particular, she showed me that I would need to meet each company member at his or her own ability level before I could help them grow as actors. She reminded me that you can't teach using a blanketed approach. But more than anything else, Sarah showed me that being a volunteer means being in service to the members of the company. Akila was a high school senior who volunteered with ArtStream in 2015. She started volunteering as a way to fulfill her high school community service hours, but says the experience has been influential on her life. She loves when the actors she works with tell her about their jobs and lives outside of the rehearsal room. ArtStream has also shaped what I want to do. I'm thinking about pursuing psychology because I see how the arts and creativity change their lives.
So in everything you're doing in mentoring, it all comes back to the fundamental idea that you are there to support the actor. And in that, you need to gauge the specific person you're working with and whether they need a lot of help, a lot of scaffolding, or a little less help because they may have more comfortability on stage and with their lines. So the main thing that you should do in any role is to encourage the actor to figure things out themselves. No one, especially adults who are creative adults, want to just feel like they're being pushed around on stage. It's like, oh, hey, buddy, this is your line right now, just go say your line. They want to feel natural, like they're part of a scene. So someone who may need a lot of help may need very specific prompting on stage, where you may be acting as equals on stage and you're saying, hey, do you remember about that game last night? When the line is something like, hey, that game last night was crazy. So making it feel like a conversation without making them feel like you're talking down to them. And then with a higher functioning actor, it may be more of a sidekick, main character type of role, where they feel powerful in that moment. They feel like they're the driving creative force, and you're just there to support them. So no one's being left alone on stage, but your role is fairly diminished in comparison to them.
So, what did I wish I knew before I started mentoring? Well, I wish I knew that it was okay to ask for help. You don't have to have all of the answers about something. And chances are, if you are mentoring with ArtStream, you are mentoring alongside people who have done this for years or even just a couple of months. But it's great to ask for help from somebody else, especially if you're working with just one student in particular. You can ask a previous mentor or another staff member to maybe meet you after rehearsal for a couple minutes just to run something by them to get some advice on how you can help that student achieve the most that they're able to achieve in that performance so that they're getting the most out of the experience. What's your biggest challenge or hardest situation and how did you handle it? This one. I think the hardest thing sometimes is when a student is having a bad day or if they're not very excited about a particular song or if they're in a bad mood about something. This can happen and sometimes it can derail the rehearsal in a lot of ways. So de-escalating the situation is the best thing to do. If you notice a student, especially if you're working with them one-on-one, is having a really bad day and they're just like not doing well, taking them in the hallway, being kind and asking if they'd like to take a break, because the goal is that everybody's able to have an optimal rehearsal. So if one person is kind of derailing that can be really challenging. And although we want to involve everybody all the time, sometimes the truth is we need a little break. All right, so anything else? Let's see. I would say always take care of you. Make sure you're in a good mental headspace before you show up to mentor and help others. We can't show up for others unless we show up for ourselves. So that is my biggest advice. Have fun. This experience is going to teach you so much and set you up for success in so many ways in your professional life.
Thank you for taking the time to learn a bit more about ArtStream and how volunteers can support our students in classes, theater companies, and cabarets. We know that this may seem like a lot, but don't forget that our staff and teaching artists are more than happy to answer any questions you may have while volunteering. Remember to have fun, and we appreciate you taking the time to support our students. If you have any further questions before you begin volunteering, please feel free to call or email me.